All right, let's talk about a huge shift that's happening in cybersecurity right now. You know the old playbook? The one where you could just buy an insurance policy and treat it like a safety net? Well, that's officially over. Today, we're going to break down the new rules of the game, where intelligence, compliance, and insurance have all merged into one single strategy for survival. Let's dive in.
First things first, let's just set the stage and talk about the stakes. $4.35 million. According to IBM, that's the average cost of a single data breach. And yeah, that's an all-time high. This isn't just some number on a slide, it's the financial shockwave that has completely flipped the world of cyber insurance on its head.
I mean, with costs like that, you can see why insurers just can't keep paying out those massive claims. So what did they do? They changed the rules. Getting and keeping a cyber insurance policy isn't a simple paperwork exercise anymore. Not at all. It's now a really tough, ongoing test of your organization's real-world defenses.
And this, right here, really shows you the before and after. On the left, you've got the old way of doing things. You know, filling out a questionnaire once a year and hoping for the best. But on the right, that's the new reality. It's called active insurance. Insurers are now using their own tools to constantly scan their clients, making real-time, data-driven decisions about risk. They don't just pay out after you get hit anymore. Now they demand you have a proactive, provable defense just to get in the door.
So, how do you even begin to navigate all this? Well, we're going to break it all down into three key pillars. First, we'll talk about building proactive intelligence. Second, achieving compliance that you can actually prove. And third, cashing in on the financial payoff. Then, we'll tie it all together into one unified strategy. So, let's jump right into our first pillar, proactive intelligence. This is really about a fundamental shift in mindset. It's about moving away from just, recording the history of past attacks, and instead, actively creating foresight to see what's coming next and stop it.
And look, this isn't just some good idea. It's now a formal requirement. The new update to the global standard, ISO 27001, explicitly mandates threat intelligence. You are required to systematically collect and analyze threat info so you can take specific mitigating action. Just being passively aware, that's not going to cut it anymore.
But threat intelligence isn't just one thing, right? It actually works on three different layers. Up at the top, you've got strategic intelligence. That's for the C-suite, giving them the big picture on global trends to help decide on budgets. In the middle, there's tactical intelligence. This tells IT managers how the attackers are operating so they can tune their defenses. And then down on the front lines, you have operational intelligence, which gives your security team specific data, like malicious IP addresses that they can block right now.
But here's the thing that connects all three of those layers. It all comes down to one simple fact: visibility. To build that foresight we were talking about, you have to be able to see your own organization from the outside, just like an attacker would. Because at the end of the day, you can't protect what you can't see.
And this is where a really important new category of tools comes into play: external attack surface management, or EASM. The best way to think about them is like a pair of security binoculars. They're constantly scanning the internet from an attacker's point of view. They find all your exposed assets, not just on your own network, but all the way out into your digital supply chain. It's that external visibility that's absolutely essential for any modern threat intel program.
Okay, so let's move on to our second pillar, because this is where it all starts to connect. We're talking about demonstrable compliance. See, in today's world, it's not enough to just be secure. You have to prove it with cold, hard evidence to your insurers, to regulators, and to auditors.
And auditors, they have a very specific way of checking this. It's sometimes called the chain of action. First, they're going to ask to see your list of intelligence sources. Show me who you're listening to. Next, they'll want to see a recent report and what you did about it. But then, and this is the real kicker, they'll demand proof of direct mitigation. You have to be able to point to a specific firewall rule you changed or a specific patch you deployed because of a specific alert.
And just when you thought the pressure from auditors was enough, new regulations are adding a whole new challenge into the mix: the clock. The timelines you have to respond and report incidents are shrinking like crazy.
For instance, there's a new law called the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act, or CIRCIA. Under this act, a whole lot of organizations are now required to report a major cyber incident to the government within just 72 hours of finding out about it.
But wait, it gets even tighter. If you end up making a ransomware payment, that same regulation says you have to report it within a mere 24 hours. I mean, trying to meet that kind of deadline is basically impossible unless you already have a mature, proactive intelligence program already running. Which brings us perfectly to our third and final pillar, the financial payoff. Because when you do this right, when you successfully bring together proactive intelligence and demonstrable compliance, your security program stops being just a cost center. It actually transforms into a real, tangible financial asset. So what's the actual payoff? Well, it's huge. First, a mature program helps you actually qualify for coverage in the first place, which is a big hurdle now. Then, it can directly lower your insurance premiums. It can also reduce your self-insured retention. That's the chunk of money you have to pay out of pocket during a breach. And of course, it helps you avoid those massive regulatory fines we just talked about.
And hey, this isn't just theory, okay? This is happening right now. Check this out. HitTrust and Lloyd's of London got together, and if you get HitTrust certified, which proves you have strong controls, you can get a starting credit of 25% on your premiums. That is a direct financial reward for having provable security.
Here's another one. The insurer Corvus will actually cut that out-of-pocket amount we mentioned, your self-insured retention, by 25% just for actively using their monitoring tools. That is the active insurance model in action, with a direct cash incentive.
And one more for you. The insurer at Bay offers up to 15% in premium savings just for proving you have specific controls in place, like multi-factor authentication. The message from the entire insurance industry could not be clearer. Proof of protection pays.
So let's pull all three of these pillars together and look at a single unified strategy. The goal here is to get away from the old separate silos of security, compliance, and finance, and instead create what you could call a virtuous cycle of resilience. Here's how it works. Your proactive threat intelligence gives you the foresight to spot risks. That data then becomes the evidence you need to prove compliance to auditors and regulators. And that provable compliance is exactly what unlocks better insurance terms and lowers your financial risk. You see, each pillar feeds and strengthens the others.
So if you only take one single thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. Proactive intelligence informs compliance, and compliance unlocks insurability. That right there is the new formula for cyber resilience.
And that really leaves us with one final question for you to think about. In this new world, is your organization's cyber strategy still being treated as just another expense on a spreadsheet, or have you started turning it into a real competitive advantage? Because that choice is going to define who thrives in the years to come.